AI is never going to replace developers, but developers who use AI are very quickly going to replace developers who don't.
This is Simon Rice, SVP of Solutions Architecture for NBC Universal, an award-winning former principal architect at AWS, and a recognized leader in the tech and media space. Simon isn't just building platforms, he's powering the pulse of a global audience. But this episode isn't about back-end infrastructure. It's about what it takes to lead at the bleeding edge of entertainment and tech. From navigating massive legacy systems to pushing bold innovations in the direct-to-consumer space, Simon's story is part engineer, part exec, and 100% real talk.
The most overrated use of AI and the most underhyped.
Oh my gosh. If another project manager comes to me and says, I'm like, really?
In this episode, we go backstage, diving into what it really takes to move fast in a billion-dollar media machine, how to lead through uncertainty, and why the best tech minds might need to think more like producers. This is your Fast Track to Cloud podcast.
So Simon, this is 2025. And everyone's suddenly an AI expert. So what's something that no one is saying about Gen AI that we should be talking about?
That no one is saying, I feel like there's the curve people talk about with Gen AI, where you have these unreasonably high expectations, and then you get the crushing despair of reality when you realize what it actually is under the covers. And I think I've kind of ridden that roller coaster, and I'm somewhere back in the middle again now. To the point where I'm kind of practically looking at what Gen AI can do. I think maybe what people are underestimating and not focused on with Gen AI is, I think the true potential of Gen AI is, of course, agentic. Like, rather than it just improving a document or helping you write an email, it's complete black box solution that you don't have to worry about, that you can fully automate a complex workflow end to end. And I think what people are maybe not focused on enough with agentic workflows is the quality or the maturity of the data that needs to go into it. And I always imagine data as a pyramid, that you've got the kind of the unwashed data at the bottom that you can use for kind of trend analysis and seeing who watched a certain TV show on a Friday night. But as you get towards the top of that pyramid and you want to start using things like machine learning and then generative AI, I think you need to be at the very top where you have absolute trust in that data. Because if you don't trust that data, how can you trust that an agent is going to be able to go away without any human supervision and do something meaningful with it? So to me, I think data cleanliness, data hygiene, and the maturity of the data is probably the most paramount thing that a lot of people are not thinking about enough.
I like that. So tell me a little bit about that. So before, let's say in your company, NBC, or the architectures you are designing, before you feed the data to the agentic framework, do you put them through some sort of cleansing activity and figuring out the correlation of different columns? How do you ensure that the data is crisp?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to things like customer data, and in my world of streaming television, things like metadata around the video assets, we've known how to clean that stuff up for years. And I think we've got better at doing that over time. I think where it becomes more challenging is that great unwashed of like enterprise data. Like if you're going to plug in your SharePoint docs, your Confluence docs, your Jira tickets, your ServiceNow incident analysis, like that stuff is the Wild West, and it could have secrets in there. It could have confidential information in there. So to me, there are sort of varying levels of where I think we have maturity. But in order to realize that agentic dream, you really need to have it across everything. I mean, the more data you're feeding into your AI, the more useful it can be. So I do think there is a sliding scale of how mature companies are. And that enterprise data is probably at the bottom of the pile. But I would imagine if you were to ask most CISOs, they would probably have been targeting that data for the past 10, 20 years. So maybe this is an opportune moment to clean house, get everything sorted out, and then start to feed that information into the AI.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think kind of going off of that, the fear of the big word is replacement, right? So are you on the boat of Gen I is either your best friend or your replacement? Kind of where do you land?
I was at I won't mention which one. I was at a big executive thing with one of the big hyperscalers out in California. Maybe that's a hint. And I was talking to their sort of chief cloud evangelist, and I asked him a very similar question, and I loved his response, so I've kind of stolen it. But it was that AI is never going to replace developers, but developers who use AI are very quickly going to replace developers who don't. And I think that's so insightful. And that's how I view AI, as a tool that can help me be more productive, more effective, take away mundane tasks that I hate doing. But if I end up in a place where it's going to replace me, then I've done something wrong. Like I haven't added enough value as a human. So to me, that's always on my mind, is like, where does the AI shine versus where does a human shine? And how do we bring the best of both worlds together?
I love that.
Yeah, I want to double down on that because I also think a lot about that. Like what parts of AI can actually significantly improve or disrupt our current technical ecosystem. So I think one area that Gen AI is really good at is doing the text analysis. All these transformer models like ChatGPT or Claude, everything. So I think one area which it will definitely disrupt is where you have to go through a bunch of logs and correlate and then fix something. So I think those job families will be changed. But developer, one thing is people keep on saying that 90% of the code will be written by Gen AI. I think it's true, because even if I give it a small task, it generates shitload of code, right? Something which should be done in 30 lines of code, it writes like 300 lines. And then it's like, do you want to continue? I'm like, no, I don't want to continue. Reject, right? So you have to be careful. Even with the agentic AI, I have been doing a lot hands-on with the agentic AI. It goes bananas. Like the other day, I'm like, okay, write this Docker file, deploy this application, run these tests. Okay, it wrote something, ran a test, it failed. He's like, all right, let me change the test cases. I'm like, no, do not change the test cases. Right? If the test failed, that means you have to go fix the application. So I think it's still a lot of human interaction that's needed. Gen AI is like an amazing white horse, but you still need Gandalf to ride it.
You know? What a great analogy. I agree. I think, though, and when I look at the space, especially the technology that my group uses, we do things like video encoding with different codecs. You could look away from that video encoding space for a year, 2 years. Maybe things have changed by 3% by the time you come back. As you know, you look away from the AI space for 2 months and the whole landscape is different. And I've certainly been guilty of using some AI productivity tools. And initially thinking, this is garbage. I don't want, like, this is Clippy on steroids. I don't want you to write an email for me or create PowerPoint slides. I'm good at doing that myself, and I'm kind of OCD, so just leave me alone. But then, coming back a month later and seeing the features they've got for prioritizing my emails and planning out my workday, and suddenly there is value there. And I think I've really had to retrain myself to just keep a finger on the pulse of where Gen AI is going, because every day there's some new headline that blows my mind.
100%. Also, I think some of the times the improvements are actually marginal. But every week, these companies are now into this rat race. If OpenAI releases something, then Claude is like, we're going to release something next week. Okay, but then if you test it out, it's not really that huge of a difference. But I agree, over like a month period, the enhancements are massive because the rate of speed at which things can be tested is incredible. Now, going back to the original question, because I really think about that a lot. People ask me, hey, will solutions architect jobs be gone with Gen AI, right? And so I think SA jobs has 4 big pillars. One is you have to navigate all the chaos from the C-level executives and requirements, and you have to derive the requirements. That Gen AI cannot do. Second part is the system design part, where you have to create the design from that requirement. Here, Gen AI will help, and more will be expected from us. Like with Gen AI, we should be able to implement the proof of concept much faster. However, I tried some. and Gen AI does absolute crazy stuff sometimes, right? They will put like kinesis streams, a lambda, like RDS from the, like, I don't know how it is doing it. It needs to get better. And then the last two are effective communication. You have to explain all the design to people in the high places like you, Simon, and get the buy-in. I don't know how much Gen AI can do that yet. And finally, the scaling and evangelizing piece. So there, Gen AI can help a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I already see areas where Gen AI helps in each of those
100.
pillars. It's some in very small ways, some
Yeah.
like with the requirements. We've developed a new plugin to Jira ourselves, where if we get a ticket that has incomplete requirements, it flags
Sure.
up. These things are inconsistent. This area is incomplete.
Yeah.
So it just saves an architect a bit of, and it's like a safety net.
Yes.
But on the actual creation of the solution design, we just last week built a prototype using Gemini behind the scenes, where you can ask it, show me an authentication flow that connects to Active Directory, does its SSO thing, goes through two-factor authentication, and then connects to our web app. And it will create workflow diagrams, block diagrams, sequence diagrams. And you can then go back in and say, well, actually, I want to put in two-factor authentication, and it will go edit the diagram. And I think things like that, to your point, I don't think will replace people, but they can be really helpful tools to just streamline the human effort.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like tools, not rules, right?
Right.
These are great tools, and use them as much as you can.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you still need to drive it.
Yeah.
I was going to even say it's interesting always to think about, well, you can't replace the human element of like that emotion or that connection that, we can create. But even it's kind of scary how well it also can communicate emotion and pull at your heartstrings when you're trying to write something really sweet to somebody or a thank you. And I'm like, wow, it's even removing the whole human emotion component as well. I don't even have to have feelings. So it
is
wild.
really reinforcing though. Whatever you say, it really kind of agrees.
Yeah, right.
You're like, should I fast for 20 hours, then go for a 5-mile run? ChatGPT will be like, that sounds like a really great idea. You may pass out and die, but hey, go for it. Right? Like it's very gently, but I agree. It's like gently encouraging you to whatever you do. Even when it disagrees very softly. Like sometimes I feel like there should be a mode, like a parent mode. Sometimes when your kid wants to do something, it's like, no, hard no.
Right.
It needs to have that mode.
Don't eat rocks.
That's right. Don't eat rocks.
You know what, though, on the emotion side of things, I'm sure I'm not the only person who works in an engineering organization where there are a lot of neurodivergent people. And those people may not naturally be able to figure out, how do I speak to a C-level executive? How would I talk to another developer? How do I structure my day and prioritize my tasks? And I actually think Gen AI can be really helpful there for folks who really don't have another safety net for those kind of challenges.
I agree. So I have to ask you, let's say a developer comes, so you are a C-level exec, control millions of dollars of budget. Will you be okay if someone just comes with a Gen AI written pitch? Or would you be like, I want you to present this with actual question answer?
Yeah, I still push for the human element. While everything I said about Gen AI, I hold to, I do think it provides useful tools. I also see a ton of garbage where humans just spew stuff out of Gen AI and throw it out there as if it's fine. I'm forever seeing project managers create project plans or lazy people taking meeting minutes with AI. And it requires a lot of human interaction to finesse it into something consumable. I would always push for a real pitch over Gen AI.
One of the red flags of Gen AI, especially in solutions architecture, is how confidently it can bullshit. Okay? Like, I'll give a technical example. So I asked, hey, one customer is having challenges with ingesting all the log. So generally, you will put a streaming solution in between, okay? It will say, yeah, do the same thing. Put a kinesis, let the CloudWatch consume it like it does with Splunk. But CloudWatch cannot consume the logs directly from the kinesis.
Right.
But it confidently said it, okay? Only because I knew that part, I'm like, if I just say this to the customer, that will be bad.
Right.
So you always have to check some of that stuff.
Yeah, really.
Okay, next question, Simon. You have seen tech from both the inside of AWS and NBC. How are legacy companies versus tech giants really handling AI adoption? The real question really is, who is bluffing, Simon?
Who's bluffing? I mean, honestly, I feel like everybody's bluffing to some extent with AI because the technology is still emerging and just isn't there for really large scale enterprise use cases just yet. I mean, it's close in many areas. I think the way I'm seeing most big companies pursue AI, which I think is smart. I think there's a fear of lock-in either to specific LLMs or to specific cloud platforms. So I think most people are looking at how do I build an abstraction layer to remove that lock into those specific models or specific clouds. So there are vendors out there like Kong who just provide an AI gateway that just does the translation between what Claude's expecting versus what Gemini's expecting. Super simple, but they also provide a degree of cost tracking, like semantics caches, prompt history, all of those things that you would want. So I'm certainly seeing those kind of technologies like Kong and Portkey and things like that. And I'm seeing bigger companies lean towards, building their own infrastructure in the cloud mostly, but doing things like using Redis for vector databases, for example, like having their in-house vector database, but then making calls out through these abstraction layers to the various model providers. And I mean, to me, that seems smart because then they've got freedom that when Microsoft leapfrogs Google and Amazon leapfrogs Microsoft, they can just connect into the latest and greatest model. I'm certainly seeing some organizations who are doing the old school enterprise IT thing. Like I saw a Gen AI roadmap last week that was 2 to 3 years long. And I'm like, guys,
It's all gonna
this
change.
is all wrong. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just throw it away. Which I completely get. If your business was rolling out like Exchange servers and SharePoint sites, like maybe that timeline's feasible, like an SAP migration, but it's not for Gen AI. So yeah, I do think that sort of agility and freedom is so key to just allow you to pivot when the industry pivots.
Got it. So, and you have handled wide array of projects, Simon, in your long career. I'm personally curious, what's the most complex project you have done?
I've, as you say, I've been lucky enough to work on some really, I've rolled out a streaming service in 44 African countries. That was a real educational experience. We broke streaming records in the US a couple of years ago with some exclusive NFL games on Peacock that, a third of the internet traffic was people watching a game on Peacock, which was mind-blowing to me. But actually, I think the most complex project was probably an AI project that we did last year for the Paris Olympics. And the idea, and this is, I guess, to your earlier point, the role of an architect is to take an idea and try to finesse it into some requirements. So the idea from our product team was, wouldn't it be awesome if at the end of every day, you could have a personalized experience where a well-known, beloved sports news reader in some sort of an AI simulation would update you on what you missed that day and say, hey, Simon, here's what you missed in swimming today. So we kind of started to kick that around, and we realized we already had video clips we could use for those recaps that we published on YouTube. So we kind of had the content there, but we had no scripts, we had no voice, and we had no celebrity who was even willing to go anywhere near this thing. So we actually started, we partnered with Microsoft on this. They were really intrigued by the idea, and they put some skin in the game. And they brought in a third party who purely did voice simulation. And it blew me away because previously I'd worked with another massive tech company who said that it took about 1.5 to 2 years of really training a voice before it sounded human-like. And even then it sounded a little robotic. I think with this project, within 2 to 3 weeks, we had a really human-like voice with like breathing. It was uncannily human. So we played it to the sports newsreader who we were targeting, and he said, I love it. I'm creeped out by how much it sounds like me. There is no way I'm going anywhere near this project. I'm out. And we were like, oh no. So the celebrity walked away. So then we approached Al Michaels, who I think was 75 75 or 74 at the time.
It's an iconic voice. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, what a voice.
Yes.
And he was so enthusiastic. He loved
Wow.
the idea. No concerns about AI at all. He was
Yeah.
like, hell yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in. So we had this huge pivot where we had to retrain the voice to sound like Al Michaels.
Wow.
Thankfully, with the thousands of hours of footage we had available of Al Michaels. So we kind of created this experience. It was originally just on iOS devices where literally at the end of every day, it would say, hey, Simon, and Al Michaels' face would pop up. Hey, Simon, here's what you missed in swimming today. And it would, but I guess the huge complexity there, we picked a few clips to sample this with, and they sounded great, and they had easily readable names. When we got into the real Olympics with, so many nationalities, so many really complex names, all of a sudden the LLM was really, really struggling to actually pronounce things. And it was doing weird things with numbers in times and things. So we literally had a human editorial team of about 22, 24 people in Stamford, Connecticut, every single day, round the clock, just editing these scripts that were being fed into AI Al Michaels. So we had the benefit of human editors actually curating what the AI was going to say, and then this synthetic Al Michaels voice actually reading it out to customers. And I think, that was the best of both worlds. We created jobs for real people, but actually leveraged AI where it added the most value. So to me, it was such a huge learning. And we built that whole project start to finish in about 6 weeks. It was really rapid, really agile, and customers loved it, which, was such a buzz.
And this was your team, Simon?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you still get into the weeds of the architecture and whatnot?
Yeah, from time to time. My focus recently actually has been more about things like platform engineering, like SREs, and how we actually take cloud technology that we leveraged 10 years ago and then start to modernize it and start to look at things like, is Kafka still the right streaming technology? Should we be looking at Flink? Like I think we're now at this inflection point where especially the cloud native compute foundations just churning out these really high quality, well supported products. And I'm starting to wonder, like, what is the next phase of cloud native stuff going to look like, and where are the cloud vendors going, so we can jump on that bandwagon early and be innovators in that space.
Yeah, I think the viewers do not know. For the viewers who think that, okay, I'm a good architect, actually, Simon was my mentor on AWS. We had some good times with all our whiteboarding and whatnot. We have some fun ideas, complex architectures. We have handled some multi-million-dollar projects. So, Simon, how do you keep up with it?
Yeah, it's, it can be exhausting. And I feel technology is so broad now that you run the risk of keeping up with one area and losing track of 5. And to me, it's about trying to figure out where do you get the most bang for your buck in terms of knowledge. So for me, like I said earlier, data is so key. Everything from like data lakes to the constant battles between data mesh and data fabric as philosophies, and the emerging technology around all of that's kind of feeding into Gen AI. So, data is one key area. AI is an emerging area, both in terms of productivity and like customer facing AI. But then really cloud infrastructure that underpins everything is the other area. So those are probably the 3 pillars that I look at most. But even within cloud infrastructure, you've got databases, you've got compute, you've got containerization, like networking and security. It's such a vast area that I don't think any one person can really know everything. And I think it requires a bit of humility to admit that you don't know, and try to network with the people who do, so you can bring in the right subject matter experts at the right time.
Yeah.
I just have to go back and touch on the voice, Al Michaels. The first person I thought, there's 2 people that are so iconic in sports to me, is Al Michaels and Jim Nantz when it comes to golf. And it's amazing to me though how well technology and the AI is merging into marketing to extend upon that human connection, because with sensory, once you hear that, it's so soothing as a person too, right? You immediately connect with something. So again, how there's so many influences I think that's going to have on the whole marketing realm when it comes to what AI can do, and just the emotional connection again that it's still replacing and frighteningly, but
I mean, we have a microsite available now for fans of the Law and Order TV show, where both Peacock viewers and traditional NBC cable viewers will be redirected to like a choose your own adventure. And in that choose your own adventure, the LLM is determining the future paths of the story, and it's impersonating different characters from Law and Order. So it creates this sort of AI art in the background. It's wild how you can, and the stakes of that, like the stakes of getting a Law and Order story wrong, are fairly low. Like, we don't want it to happen, but it's not catastrophic. So I do think there are areas where innovation is fun and easy, and you can start to gauge customer feedback. And I must say, on the Al Michaels voice recap, I announced it on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn like reshared my post in LinkedIn News. And I had, I don't know, 40,000 views in 10 minutes or something. It really blew up. And it was villagers and pitchforks. It was, how dare you do this? This man's a national treasure. You're taking away people's jobs. And I was like, well, first of all, he's 75.
Right.
and we're recording 6,000 hours of audio every day. So I don't think Al Michaels wants this job. But the fact that we also created 22 jobs in the editorial team, I think helped there as well. But it was fascinating seeing people go from hating the idea to when they actually saw it and experienced it, they were like, this is actually really cool. Al Michaels just said my name.
Yeah, that's right. I'd be like, wow. Oh, man. Well, I think we've touched on this a little bit, but just to tease it out, the most overrated use of AI and the most underhyped.
Oh my gosh. Putting chatbots in front of everything. Like, if another project manager comes to me and says, I want to put a chatbot in front of my documents, I'm like, really? Yeah. I mean, those to me are the things that are just going to become commodities. And I mean, already, I think you talked about how week on week, the advancements are relatively small. I think where it becomes a paradigm shift is when, Microsoft take GPT 4.0 and plug that into Copilot behind the scenes. And all of a sudden, it's an exponential leap in capabilities. And we saw that recently with Copilot. And the fact that Copilot's plugged into your email, your SharePoint, your OneDrive, your PowerPoint, it can read your meetings notes from Teams. Like, suddenly you've got a very powerful tool that requires really zero administration, zero setup, and as long as the data is in reasonable shape, you can just use it. So I do think, although those chatbot use cases drive me crazy, and I probably hear about another 5 a week, and I'm like, but I do think that is a solved problem that's going to go away. In the same way as like autocorrect on phones is a solved problem. I think chatbots will just be something people use natively and don't even think about. I think for me, emerging areas that are untapped, and I completely get why. In my world, it's kind of content creation, and clearly there's a lot of nuance to what people should be allowed to use AI for, and I totally get that, and I really don't want to put like visual artists or effects people out of business, or or actors, or especially video games performers. I love video games. But I do think there are some areas where AI can create like background B-roll video way, way faster and cheaper than a human film crew could, and ways that AI can like upscale video to improve quality and things. And we looked at that maybe a year ago, and some of those features were kind of rudimentary. But as I said, like now the whole game has changed, and I do think we're maybe in a world where things that can be done on devices to enhance and influence video are really, really interesting. The example everyone in the industry has talked about forever is, what if you didn't like the ending to a movie and AI could just create you a different ending? And we're light years away from that now, but no humans could ever create a personalized ending for everyone's tastes, but AI does have the scale to be able to allow that, and may eventually be capable. So I do think that sort of content creation is really interesting.
No, so I was playing with Google Veo 3, which came out like a couple of weeks back, and it can generate videos with sound. So you can put a dialogue and they will sync the lip and it will say the stuff. A lot of movies are actually using it. I think we are moving faster in that area. So I don't know how it will impact the jobs, but it is fascinating to see. I would surely watch a movie where Neo of Matrix does not die at the end.
Right.
And if that happens, sign me up. Um, Simon, if your job was on the line tomorrow and the company said, we are replacing you with AI, how would you fight back?
How would I fight back? I mean, again, I think it's down to what value am I as a human adding, and what is AI doing in that equation? Like, do I really feel like AI is capably doing my job? If so, then I've probably been in the wrong job for a while, and I've probably seen this coming, and it's probably on me. If I think I'm adding value over and above AI, then it's down to me to demonstrate that, is gather data points, tell a story to my leadership. And if AI was truly doing a job as well as I could, then have at it. But I think we are decades away from that being the case. I do think, though, people maybe need to think about how their jobs are evolving, and I think you touched on it earlier, but for example, developers, I think there's this concept that development always starts in the IDE. And within the IDE, AI has, somewhat limited value. It can offer suggestions and write a bit of code for you. But actually, if you start your development outside of the IDE, you start it in a chat interface, maybe the AI can actually generate more code up front. And then the human's role in that is really editing the code, testing the code, validating and fine tuning it within the IDE. So I do think in every role, whether it's a developer, the role has to evolve, and people need to be flexible there. So I would ask myself, if I were in that position, was I flexible enough, or was I pig-headed and stuck to my ways of doing things? But even in that example with the IDEs, a developer spends 20 to 30% of their time in an IDE.
Yeah.
The rest of their time is attending meetings and creating PowerPoint decks and documentation. And maybe AI can do some of it, but absolutely not all of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and developer jobs will not go away, because if that was the case, these big tech companies would have stopped hiring developers long back.
Right.
Because as their time gets freed up by some of the stuff that Gen AI is doing, there will be new requirements. And we have seen this throughout history. When horses got replaced by cars, there was less stable jobs, but then new jobs got created. And if we think that, if this big tech can have this much faster, they will be done. They'll never be. Else, they already have thousands of developers. They still need more. I think what you touched on before is a good point. You just have to think, can AI replace me, or can I harness the power of AI to make myself more impactful? AI cannot do that. We are not an AGI. Okay, sometimes it's a little bit overhyped. And you and I have been using these tools. It needs a good bit of driving force. It is really good at assimilating what's already there and coming up something based on that, but it cannot come up with something totally new.
Right.
So a brand new architecture or a brand new literature. I know your kids goes into very elite art school, one of your kids, right? An AI will not be able to come up with a new painting style. And the trend, the way it's going, is now humans are craving for original art.
Right.
That's how it's going to happen. I feel like meetups and human connections will become even better with this Gen AI advent.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, you already see on LinkedIn and on social media, people use the hashtag human generated because they want to differentiate their art. But I don't even think you need to use that hashtag. I think there's just something very authentic about something that a human being has created that an AI never could, and really never could. And that's so debatable. And there's the whole Apple thing going on right now, but between Apple and Claude. But I really don't think AI will ever be able to create something new. It's always just regurgitating a massive corpus of information that is trained over years.
Yeah,
cool. There's a ton of value in that, but that's not creation.
100%.
Well, Simon, talking a little bit about your personal journey, you jumped from Amazon to NBC. Was that a power move or a pivot?
Oh, wow. I must admit, before I worked at AWS, I worked for an Oracle consultants, professional services company, very small outfit, but I learned a lot there. I had a great time, progressed very well within the organization, but I kept hearing people talk about the cloud, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really missing something. So I moved to AWS in order to learn about the cloud. I stepped down the ladder and I got a regular role as an individual contributor, and I just tried to learn as much as I could for a few years. But I must admit that there's always a buzz within AWS about builders. Solutions architects are always referred to as builders. And I was like, I'm part of a sales team. I build diagrams and every now and again I'll build a demo, but I feel like a bit of a fraud talking about being a builder. And then I heard about NBC starting to build the Peacock streaming app, and they kind of came from this engineering culture, and I thought I really want to move back into an engineering role and just start building things again. So that was what appealed to me about joining NBC. Very different culture to Amazon, but also very innovative at the same time. And I feel like it helped me gain, because I think the stakes are a lot lower if you're a solutions architect who is just creating slideware. But if you're taking your designs and giving them to developers, the stakes are way higher. That you're never off the hook, and if something goes wrong, it's on you. And there's a lot more pressure, but also a lot more satisfaction that when you see one of your features make it out there into the wild and hear customers talking about it, good or bad, on Twitter, it's a real buzz. So to me, it was kind of a risk versus reward thing. And I certainly don't regret making that jump.
Yeah, I do miss Jeff Bezos though. When we were working at Amazon together, Jeff was still the CEO. And in the quarterly meetings, he would come and he would talk, and he is just magnanimous. Like his sense of humor, I don't think people give enough credit to. Even in the inside meetings, he is like sharp and funny. I feel like that's a big vacuum once he left and he became jacked, and now he's just chilling in his super yacht and whatever. I do miss those days. I mean, he's one of the reasons why I really wanted to join Amazon.
Right. Same. There's certainly, when you look at the billionaire community, they're not always admirable people, but I genuinely, I felt quite, I felt that Jeff was quite a personable person and just a human guy. He actually said something at an all hands very early on in my time at AWS that you just reminded me of, that someone asked him about, and I think this was around machine learning and traditional artificial intelligence, and when Alexa was a new idea. But someone asked him, "Is this going to take humans' jobs?" And he said, back in my day, like when I was growing up, there were so limited jobs, and now there are jobs coming up like a dog masseuse that I would never have imagined existed. And I don't know what the new jobs are going to be, but there will be new jobs and people will benefit from them. And that always really stuck with me, that to your point, we're creating new jobs. I don't think those new jobs are just going to be shoveling coal into the AI machine like we're all drones. I think there will be really interesting jobs coming in this new wave of technology, and it's down to people to being open to embrace those.
100%. There was no job as podcaster like 10 years back. There was no like social media influencer or content creator. All these jobs are new because of technological advancements. But talking about jobs, do you still believe in dream jobs, Simon?
I do, but I think my concept of what a dream job is has changed. I've always felt like I was a bit of an old hippie. To me, I used to feel exhilaration by working with real cutting edge technology. That to me was a dream job. I get to play with cool toys and the company's going to fund it. Like, this is amazing. And I get to learn. Like, to me, maybe now a dream job, that's still a factor. I mean, I definitely still geek out over technology. To me, a dream job is just working with people that I like, people that are happy, feeling like I've accomplished something at the end of every week when I can sign off and say, you know what, I did X this week. And I have a team who are happy human beings. Because I think, while I love what I do, and I watch a lot of streaming TV on various streaming apps, I think these apps come and go, like technologies and industries come and go, but the people we network with, the friends we make along the way, are the true gems that we find, and that to me is the dream job, is where you find a few of those gems of human beings,
Yeah.
and they stay with you for the rest of your life, as we have, you know.
Yeah, I think people underestimate this. Sometimes they just use people as like pedestals or something, but that is the real deal. Like, we know each other for like what, 8 years or something
Yeah.
now, and we stayed in touch even after we stopped working. And even in AWS, you moved and you started leading the publishing or games department, I remember, right? But we always kept in touch, and I still reach out to you if I need advice on some architecture or how to navigate a complex project. And you cannot replace that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think that human connection is so important. And to me, you know, maybe it's a thing about getting older, but I definitely, I value the human benefits of a role way more than I value the technology benefits these days.
Yeah.
You know, something you said earlier that really resonates, I think, also with your viewers, Raj, with their thinking about like a career switch or, you know, making that move. You know, you said you took a step down when heading to Amazon or AWS, and, you know, removing that ego component. A lot of people that I've, you know, listened to recently who have to, you know, remove their ego from themselves to take the step back to learn, to then be able to excel and move on from that. And I think that's, you know, it's a scary choice potentially. It could be risky. And it really takes a lot of, you know, self-humbling and things of that nature. But I think it really resonates that sometimes to take that step, you need to take a step back before you can leap yourself forward. So I think that really is something that resonates probably with a lot of people that you speak with as well. And I'm kind of in that vein. What's the worst career advice that you've ever received? And what would you tell that version of yourself now?
You know, it may not be terrible career advice, but I ignore it every single time people offer it to me. There's that advice which is like, you know, don't push too hard, don't go too fast, take things slow, take your time. You know, whenever people in any area of my life start to tell me that kind of thing, I'm
That's like my mother.
Yeah, I put it in
my
a
mom.
closet in my brain and I close the door. I'm like, okay, yeah, thanks for the advice, Grandpa, but I like that. Yeah, you know, to me, I really value people who self-advocate, and you know, frankly, most of my career I think is luck, but again and again I put myself in positions where I could or could not have been lucky, and I think unless you put yourself in those positions, you can guarantee that nothing's going to happen. Like you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, and to me, I think those people who are just willing to sit back and let life come to them, that's never been my DNA. I go after it full speed ahead. Like, and you know, to your point, it is scary. There are risks involved, but that's the only way I've ever found to live, and it's served me pretty well. So I ignore all those cautionary tales, sometimes to my detriment. Sometimes I've regretted it, but not very much.
Do you think, Simon, like people are lazy when they have to start something new, or do you think they're afraid more?
Yeah, I don't know whether I would say lazy. I mean, everyone's got their own things going on in their own heads. So yeah, maybe some of those folks are lazy, but I definitely think there's an era of like analysis paralysis when it comes to your own career, more than anything else. And I do a lot of kind of mentoring for people early in their careers. And there's a lady I've been mentoring for several years now. She's absolutely fantastic. And she was given two incredible career options. And I've never seen someone have such a challenge. And both options were great. Like it was a win-win scenario. It was crippling to her, and for good reason. So I do think whenever you're on a crossroads like that, it is so hard to take that first step. But sometimes you just got to say, screw it, and just step forward. And then you're on that journey. But it is really intimidating. I would never judge anyone for feeling that.
So you mentioned some really high pressure, high stakes environments that you've worked in. What helps keep you grounded?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. I think and maybe grounded and humble are two different things that I have different
Mhm.
different tricks for. Grounded for me, I love to work out every morning,
Mhm.
5:30 a.m. I've just got a really simple home gym, like probably no more than $200 worth of equipment in the whole place. Like
Mhm.
some weights, a bench, that's pretty much it.
Right.
And I will go down there every morning from 5:30 normally till 7.
Mhm.
My commute starts at 8, and that hour and a half in the morning is
Mm.
that's my zen. Like that's
Mhm.
yeah, that's my meditation, and
Yes.
it gives me space to plan my day, to think if I'm going to have a conflict, how am I going to deal with that, and
Right.
work out like multiple avenues. And I think I give people the impression that I think on my feet and I ad lib well. I
Mm.
really don't.
Mm.
It all comes from that 90 minutes in the
Yeah.
morning when I'm lifting weights
Yeah.
and thinking about how I'm going to conduct myself in the day.
Yeah.
So that I think that really helps me stay grounded.
Mm.
Humble is I often think about where I came from.
Mhm.
I'm a kid who grew up in like rural southeast England where we're in farmland. You know, everyone I
Mhm.
knew was a farmer, and
Mhm.
never imagined I'd be working in New York City in 30 Rock and
Mhm.
leading this incredible team. So I really try to ground myself in like how lucky am I? And there are a million and infinite number of me's out there who never made it to this
Mhm.
point, and I
Mhm.
am so privileged to be the version of me who got here. So better
Yeah.
turn up today and and bring
Yeah.
it.
Where you are today is a testament to your grit and resilience,
Mhm.
Simon. Like
Mhm.
you are someone who just keeps punching. And that's one thing I admire about you. I remember those grueling sessions when we had to deliver something to a customer, and you will always say, Raj, I don't know, but let me just keep at it. Right? And you will study hard and you keep showing up, and that's why you are successful. But it is an incredible journey. Sometimes I think you are too humble. You also used to teach karate to New York City kids who are in danger and all that stuff. So, but let's go to something which I really love to talk about: grit and resilience.
Mm.
So, what does those two words mean to you?
Mhm.
You know, it's something you just touched on. So when I lived in the UK, this was kind of 2009 through 2010. I'd always been into martial arts my whole
Mm,
life, and I got into what was then called K1 kickboxing, and it was a
mm,
precursor to mixed martial arts and
Mhm.
kind of kickboxing mixed with Thai boxing with knees and elbows. It was pretty hardcore. So I got into competitive K1 kickboxing, and I remember my instructor at one point said to me, Simon, I don't know how you do it because you're not very strong, you're not very big, you don't have very much skill, but you just don't give up. You
Mhm.
just keep going forward. And I was like, that's the only way I've ever known how to live my life is
mhm,
just keep going. And
Mhm.
things like plank, like other people would just give up and I would still be there 10 minutes after they were
Mhm.
panting on the floor. And just because I was too stubborn mostly
Mhm.
to give up. So there is a degree of stubbornness. I have fought really hard to get to where I am, and I
mhm,
and I and I fight really hard to maintain that. And
Mhm.
I do think like complacency is your enemy. Like if especially in technology,
Mm.
if you get complacent about where you are, what you know, the role that you're in, the world overtakes you, and a year down the line you suddenly realize that your knowledge is stale. And I do think that stubbornness kind of keeps me sharp and keeps me learning. And
Mhm.
you absolutely have to do that. Otherwise, you will be one of those people that's replaced
Mhm.
by a human using AI in the future.
Mhm.
How do you keep the hunger going, Simon?
Mhm.
You know, it varies. Yeah, I do think, with any job, there naturally comes a point where it becomes the same. And I think there are ways that you can find new areas of interest within a job. There are always new projects that may be interesting. But I also think it's natural to say, okay, I'm coming to the end of my time in this role, and be transparent with yourself and like, even with your leadership about that.
Mhm.
Like I think, especially in bigger companies, there are always so many avenues to explore, and you shouldn't be looking at it that the grass is always greener. But I think if
Mhm,
you are coming to that point where you're just a little bit disenchanted and stale with where you are, why not explore some of those parallel paths? And maybe they're not for you, and maybe you end up back where you started, and you're grateful for the learning experience. But at least you explored some other paths, and that's kind of what I tend to do is just try to network with other people, with other companies, If I feel like there's something super exciting that I would be crazy to miss, maybe I pursue that. But also maybe I look around and think, wow, I'm lucky to be where I am. And I just go back with a different sense of gratitude.
It really resonated what you said about being relentless, because literally, formally, you cannot lose a game if you don't quit. Like imagine a tennis match and then you are down 10 points or 15 points or whatever sets, right? If the match, if you say, I'm not going to quit, I'm going to keep playing, officially, you have not lost, right? So I think bone crushing consistency is what you need and what sometimes is missing. And I think we are talking about this the other day, Marcella. So you run. So when you start a long marathon, there are only 2 times people cheer for you. When you are starting, when you are ending. But all the work happens in the middle. You have to keep on running even when no one's clapping for you, right? Okay. What's one belief, Simon, you had 5 years ago that you'd laugh at today?
Oh, so many.
Steak is amazing. I mean, everyone now.
That is, oh my gosh, yeah, that's so true. I would eat the heck out of steaks. Yeah, I now eat only plant-based food. So yeah, what a change. I've been wrong again and again, especially about technology. And it's funny, at Amazon, one of the leadership principles was leaders are right, a lot. And there was this myth that great leaders have this instinct and they just know things and they just instinctively know things are right. I at least didn't. And actually, most of the best leaders I worked with there made a bunch of mistakes and learned from them. But not 5 years ago, but I think the most embarrassing mistake I made, I was working for a telecoms company in the UK. We had sole rights with a company called Apple, who just made those funky computers, and they were going to release this new phone that was going to, I think that the average mobile contract was about $15 a month. These jokers wanted $60 a month for their weird glossy phone. And I was like, no one is going to buy this thing. And of course it was the iPhone. And I could not have been more wrong. And it revolutionized the way
Should
we
have
use
bought some
phones.
stocks back then.
I even went to a music concert the night the iPhone launched because I was like, this is going to be so underwhelming.
I was on the line, by the way. I still have my first iPhone.
Really?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was like, nobody's going to buy it. I was literally watching the Sex Pistols in the middle of London. They just reunited. And then my phone's blowing up. Our activation system can't cope with the millions of people who are buying this. And I was like, damn it. I'm wrong again, Simon. So yeah, I've been wrong about technology a bunch. But actually, Gen AI, I was a believer early on. And like I said, I kind of went from the believer to the trough of disillusionment to now somewhere in the middle. So at least I didn't miss that bandwagon.
Right. All right, Marcella, you want to
right.
finish us off
We'll
with
do a quick little rapid fire, if you will. Fill in the blank. AI will
stabilize is what I think. I think it is gonna become somewhat more commoditized. I think the cost is gonna come down. The myths are gonna be dispelled, and we'll start using it like we do any other technology.
Awesome. Career ladders are
essential. I think if you don't know where you are on the career ladder and how to get to the next step on the career ladder, how do you drive your own, how do you self-advocate in your own career? I think it's absolutely essential.
Success smells like.
Success smells like victory to me. I think people think I'm very humble, a very nice guy.
You are humble and you are nice.
There are days when I know I've got a tough day ahead, and I will walk into that building like a UFC fighter entering the octagon. I slam, and then I have to. But it really helps. I give myself a pep talk as I'm walking in. I feel really fired up, and then as I get to the office, I have to slow it all down again. I'm like, okay, Simon, this isn't actually an MMA fight. You're just walking into a meeting with a CTO or something. Just relax. So yes, but success to me feels like victory. Like I've gone into a high stakes situation and I've triumphed over all the odds. So that's the best smell.
That's great.
That's great. I think life is harder than a MMA match. Because MMA match lasts for 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Right.
Like Rocky cutscene lasts for 30 seconds where he works out. You have to, in real life,
Mm.
that cutscene exists for months.
Right.
You have to struggle. You have to keep working hard. You do fight all the time,
Very
which
true.
is incredible. Where can people find you, Simon?
Where can they find me? LinkedIn. I post a bunch of garbage every once in a while on LinkedIn. YouTube as well. My wife and I have a channel which is a little bit neglected at the moment, as she just started a full-time job that has been really demanding on her side. She's in her own fight, but the channel is called Nerd Safari, and we talk about movies and TV shows and video games and do trailer reactions, and it's a fun time. So yeah, if people want to check out Nerd Safari, hopefully we'll have some new content on there soon.
Very cool.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you, Simon,
thank you so
for
much.
coming and chatting with us.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, and the signs.
Right
oh,
on
I'm right on
on
time.
the
Yeah,
button.
they have been very gracious not to beep.
Yeah.